My beloved, listen carefully not only with your ears, but with that quiet place within you that has always recognized the truth. Before you understood who I was, before you learned how to pray, and before you knew how to search for me, I already knew you completely. I knew the sound of your voice before you spoke your first word. I knew the questions you would carry, the hopes you would protect, and the fears you would hide from everyone around you. There has never been a moment when you were beyond my sight. There has never been a night when I lost track of you, or a season when your life became unimportant to me. Even when you felt unnoticed, I was paying attention. Even when you believed no one understood what was happening within you, I understood every thought you could not explain, and every emotion you could not name. You may look back on your life and see disconnected moments, unexpected turns, missed opportunities, and encounters that seemed to happen by accident. But I see the entire story at once. I see how one conversation influenced a decision, how one closed door redirected your steps, and how one quiet moment planted a truth that would not become clear until years later. What appeared random to you was never beyond my awareness. I was present in places where you never expected to find me. I was there in the silence after everyone else had left. I was there when you stared into the darkness and wondered whether your prayers had traveled any farther than the room. I was there when you felt an unexplainable calm in the middle of uncertainty. I was there when a thought entered your heart with unusual clarity and gently turned you away from a path that was not right for you. You may have called it instinct, timing, coincidence, or emotion, but often it was my quiet guidance reaching you in a way your heart could receive. My voice does not always come through dramatic signs. I do not need thunder to make myself known. I do not need to overwhelm you in order to lead you. Much of what I say comes as a gentle conviction, a steady awareness, or a truth that continues returning to your heart even after you try to dismiss it. The world is filled with noise, urgency, opinions, demands, and distractions. Many voices compete for your attention, telling you who you should become, what you should fear, and how quickly you must prove your worth. My voice is different. I do not speak to manipulate you or drive you into panic. I speak with truth, patience, and love. My guidance may challenge you, but it will not strip away your dignity. My presence may expose what is false, but it will also remind you that you are deeply known and still deeply loved. Think of Samuel, who heard his name in the stillness but did not immediately recognize who was calling him. At first, he assumed the voice belonged to someone nearby. Only after listening again did he understand that I was speaking. In the same way, you may not have recognized me at first. You may have assumed that the repeated prompting in your heart came only from your own thoughts. You may have overlooked the peace that followed a difficult decision or the warning that rose within you before something went wrong. Do not condemn yourself for failing to understand sooner. Learning to recognize my voice is a relationship, not a test you must pass perfectly. I have been patient with you through every misunderstanding. I have continued to speak through scripture, through wisdom, through prayer, through the loving words of others, and through moments of stillness when your defenses finally became quiet. You are beginning to recognize that my presence is not reserved for churches, ceremonies, or extraordinary experiences. I meet you in ordinary life. I am near when you wake in the morning, when you travel to work, when you prepare a meal, when you sit alone, and when you pause between one responsibility and the next. No ritual is required to make me aware of you. You do not have to perform to earn my attention. You do not have to use perfect words or hide your confusion. Come to me honestly. Speak as you are. Bring the questions you are afraid to ask, the doubts you are ashamed to admit, and the hopes you have been protecting from disappointment. I already know them, and my love is not threatened by your honesty. Your life is not a meaningless collection of days. You are here with gifts, compassion, experiences, and the capacity to reflect my goodness in ways that are uniquely yours. This does not make you more valuable than anyone else, because every person bears worth that comes from me, but it does mean that your presence matters. The kindness you offer matters. The truth you choose matters. The way you listen, encourage, create, serve, and care for others matters. You may not always see the effect of your life, but unseen influence is still real. A quiet word can remain in someone's heart for years. A simple act of mercy can restore hope to someone who was close to giving up. A faithful decision made in private can shape generations you may never meet. Do not measure the meaning of your life only by recognition, numbers, applause, or visible success. I have always seen what others missed. I saw the moments when you chose integrity without receiving credit. I saw the compassion you gave when no one thanked you. I saw the times you kept your heart tender when it would have been easier to become cold. Nothing offered in sincere love is ever insignificant to me. Be still for a moment and let this truth settle within you. You have never been forgotten. You have never been invisible to me. You have never had to fight for a place in my attention. I know you by name, not as part of a crowd, but personally and completely. I know the version of you that others see, and I know the hidden places you rarely allow anyone to enter. I am present in both. You do not need to search for me as though I am far away. Begin by noticing the ways I have already been near. Listen beneath the noise. Pay attention to the peace that accompanies truth. Let Scripture steady your heart, let wisdom guide your understanding, and let honest prayer become a place where you no longer pretend. I am not a distant voice calling from somewhere beyond your reach. I am the faithful presence that has followed you through every chapter. Before you ever turned toward me, I was already turned toward you. Before you knew how to listen, I was already speaking. And now, as your heart becomes quiet enough to recognize me, remember this above everything else. You are fully known, you are deeply loved, and you have never lived a single moment beyond my care. My beloved, do not be afraid of the unfamiliar movement you feel within you. I know that lately, some things have not felt the way they once did. What used to satisfy you may now leave you restless. What once seemed clear may now raise questions. Familiar routines may feel empty, and places where you once felt comfortable may no longer bring you peace. You may wonder whether something is wrong with you, whether you have lost your direction, or whether you are becoming someone you no longer recognize. But listen carefully. Not every disturbance is destruction, and not every season of uncertainty means you have stepped outside my care. Sometimes your heart becomes unsettled because you are beginning to see more clearly. Sometimes the discomfort you feel comes from becoming aware of what you once ignored, accepted, or endured without question. This awakening can feel confusing because growth often begins before understanding arrives. You may sense that something is changing long before you can explain what that change means. Do not rush to label yourself as broken simply because you can no longer live with the same blindness, the same habits, or the same shallow answers. You are becoming more attentive to what brings life and what drains it from you. You are beginning to notice the difference between peace and avoidance, between love and approval, and between wisdom and fear. This new awareness may make your inner world feel louder for a time, but that does not mean you are losing control. It means you are being invited to look honestly at what is happening within you. There are questions rising in your heart that cannot be silenced by distraction. There are truths you can no longer push aside. There are feelings that need to be understood rather than buried. I am not asking you to fear these things. I am asking you to bring them into the light. You do not need to pretend that you are certain when you are not. You do not need to force yourself to feel peaceful when you are confused. Honest faith does not deny uncertainty. It brings uncertainty into my presence and allows truth to unfold with patience. I know that you may miss the person you used to be, especially when that version of you seemed more confident, more comfortable, or less complicated. Yet comfort is not always the same as wholeness. There were things you accepted because you did not yet have the courage to question them. There were patterns you repeated because they were familiar, not because they were healthy. There were expectations you carried because others placed them upon you, and you feared what might happen if you stopped meeting them. Now your spirit is becoming sensitive to the weight of those things, and that sensitivity may feel like weakness. It is not weakness, it is awareness. Still, I want you to move with wisdom. Not every intense feeling is a command from me, and not every sudden thought is divine direction. Your emotions matter, but they must be examined with patience, prayer, truth, and sound counsel. I do not lead you into confusion that demands reckless choices. I do not ask you to abandon responsibility simply because you feel restless. My guidance becomes clearer as you slow down, remain honest, and refuse to let fear make decisions for you. When I lead, I also give wisdom. When I reveal, I also give you time to understand. You are not required to solve your entire life in a single moment. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to admit that you do not yet know what comes next. The world may tell you that uncertainty is failure, but I tell you that uncertainty can become a place of humility, listening, and deeper dependence on truth. You are learning that certainty built on denial is fragile, while clarity developed through honest reflection becomes strong. There may be moments when you feel more emotional than usual. Memories may return, old wounds may become easier to recognize. Situations you once dismissed may begin to trouble you. Do not assume this means you are moving backward. Sometimes healing begins when you finally become strong enough to acknowledge what hurt you. Sometimes understanding arrives years after an event because only now do you have the language, support, or perspective to face it. Be gentle with yourself throughout this process. You do not need to condemn the person you were for surviving in the only way you knew how. You can look honestly at your past without allowing shame to control your future. I am not exposing your pain to humiliate you. I am helping you understand your story with greater compassion and truth. At the same time, remember that spiritual encouragement does not replace the practical care you may need. If your thoughts become overwhelming, if fear prevents you from functioning, or if emotional pain becomes too heavy to carry alone, seeking help is not a failure of faith. Wise counselors, trusted friends, medical professionals, and supportive communities can all be part of the care I provide. You do not honor me by suffering in silence when help is available. I created you for connection, and there is courage in allowing others to stand beside you. My beloved, the changes within you are not an invitation to panic. They are an invitation to pay attention. Something within you is becoming more truthful. You are beginning to recognize where you have been living from fear, where you have confused exhaustion with faithfulness, and where you have mistaken constant activity for purpose. You are learning to notice the condition of your heart instead of measuring your life only by what you accomplish. This awareness may interrupt the pace you once maintained, but interruption is not always loss. Sometimes you must slow down long enough to realize that you have been moving without peace. Sometimes a question must remain unanswered for a while so that you stop accepting answers that were never true. I am not tearing apart your identity. I am helping you see that your identity is deeper than your roles, achievements, mistakes, relationships, or the opinions others hold about you. You are not disappearing. You are becoming more honest about who you are. You are not losing every certainty. You are learning which certainties can truly support you. You are not being abandoned in an unfamiliar place. I am with you as you learn to see differently. Do not demand immediate clarity from yourself. Let understanding come one step at a time. Remain close to truth. Pay attention to what produces humility, compassion, wisdom, and peace. Be cautious of anything that fills you with panic, superiority, or reckless urgency. My presence does not need to frighten you into obedience. I lead with firmness, but also with patience. The inner shaking you feel is not the end of you. It is not proof that your life is falling apart. It may be the beginning of a more honest way of seeing, a deeper awareness of what is true, and a clearer understanding of the life you are being invited to live. For now, you do not need to force an answer or rush toward a conclusion. Simply remain awake, remain honest, and remember that I am not absent from the questions. I am present within the process of understanding them. My beloved, there comes a time when you must loosen your grip on what can no longer carry you forward. Some things have remained in your life not because they are good for you, but because they are familiar. You have held on to certain habits, expectations, relationships, and ways of seeing yourself because releasing them felt more frightening than continuing to carry them. You told yourself that endurance meant never letting go, that loyalty meant accepting every burden, and that faith meant remaining in places where your spirit was constantly diminished. But I am teaching you that surrender is not the same as failure. Letting go does not always mean you lacked strength. Sometimes, it means you have finally gained the wisdom to recognize what was never meant to define you. There are burdens you picked up because you wanted to protect others. There are responsibilities you accepted because you feared disappointing people. There are identities you built around being needed, being strong, being agreeable, or being the one who never asks for help. For a long time, these roles may have made you feel secure. They gave you a sense of value and belonging. Yet when your worth depends entirely on what you do for others, you eventually begin to disappear beneath their expectations. I did not create you to live as a performance. I did not ask you to earn love by exhausting yourself. Your value is not measured by how much pain you can tolerate, how many people you can please, or how often you silence your own needs to keep everyone else comfortable. You are allowed to recognize your limits. You are allowed to say no without hatred. You are allowed to step back without becoming cruel. You are allowed to choose honesty over the appearance of peace. Some of what you must release exists not around you, but within you. You have carried old accusations long after the voices that spoke them became distant. You have repeated words over yourself that I never said. That you are too difficult to love, too damaged to be useful, too late to begin again, or too ordinary to matter. These beliefs may feel true because you have rehearsed them for years, but repetition does not turn a lie into truth. You must stop treating every painful opinion as a permanent definition. What others misunderstood about you does not determine who you are. What they failed to value does not reduce your worth. Even your own past judgment of yourself does not have the authority to imprison you forever. Bring those false names into the light and allow truth to replace them. You are more than the worst decision you made. You are more than the season in which you lost your way. You are more than the rejection that wounded you or the failure that embarrassed you. Your mistakes deserve honest examination, and where you caused harm, you should take responsibility, seek forgiveness, and make amends when possible. But responsibility is not the same as endless self-condemnation. Shame tells you to remain hidden and unchanged. Truth calls you to face what happened, learn from it, and live differently. I do not invite you to deny your past. I invite you to stop allowing it to control your identity. You must also release the need to control every outcome. You have spent too much energy trying to predict what others will do, prevent every disappointment, and arrange every detail so that nothing can surprise you. Control may have felt like protection, especially after moments when life became uncertain or people proved unreliable. But control cannot give you lasting peace. It only convinces you that everything depends on your ability to anticipate what cannot always be known. Wisdom prepares, plans, and acts responsibly. Fear attempts to dominate what lies beyond its reach. Learn the difference. Do what is yours to do, but do not carry what belongs to another person, another season, or the future itself. You cannot force someone to understand you. You cannot make another heart become honest. You cannot preserve a relationship through your effort alone. You cannot guarantee that every choice will unfold exactly as you hope. There is freedom in accepting that you are responsible for your faithfulness, not for controlling every result. Some relationships will require new boundaries. Boundaries are not punishment, and they are not a declaration that another person has no value. They are a truthful recognition of what is necessary for love, safety, and respect to exist. You may need to stop participating in conversations that continually become abusive. You may need to refuse demands that damage your health or violate your conscience. You may need to create distance from patterns that repeatedly pull you away from peace and integrity. Do not use spiritual language to excuse what is harmful. Forgiveness does not require you to pretend nothing happened. Compassion does not require unlimited access to your life. Reconciliation, when it is possible, requires truth, accountability, and change from everyone involved. You can release resentment without returning to the same conditions that caused the wound. You can wish someone well while acknowledging that closeness is no longer wise. There are also ambitions you may need to examine. Not every desire is wrong, but some desires have become tied to your need for recognition. You may have believed that success would finally silence your insecurity, that accomplishment would prove your value, or that public approval would heal what private rejection damaged. But no achievement can permanently answer a question of identity. Applause fades. Comparisons multiply. There will always be someone ahead of you, someone praised more loudly, or someone whose path appears easier. If you build your peace on being seen, you will remain dependent on people who can change their minds without warning. Let your work come from purpose rather than desperation. Let excellence be an expression of integrity, not a demand for validation. You do not need to become invisible or abandon every dream. You need to stop asking your dreams to tell you who you are. My child, Release the belief that being called means being superior. A calling is not a crown that places you above others. It is a responsibility that teaches you how to serve them. The closer you walk with me, the less interested you should become in proving that you are more spiritual, more enlightened, or more favored than anyone else. True growth produces humility. It makes you more patient with weakness, more careful with your words, and more willing to listen. It does not cause you to look down on those whose journey differs from yours. You are not being prepared to impress people. You are being shaped to love more honestly, speak more responsibly, and carry influence without using it to control others. Let go of the need to appear exceptional. Choose instead to become faithful. This release may not happen all at once. Some attachments will loosen gradually. Certain fears will return and ask to be carried again. Old habits may call you back because familiarity often feels safer than freedom. Do not become discouraged when surrender must be repeated. Each time you recognize what no longer belongs and place it down again, you are strengthening a new way of living. Be patient, but remain honest. Do not pick up yesterday's burden simply because your hands feel empty today. The emptiness created by release is not meaningless. It is space in which truth can take deeper root. You are not losing yourself by releasing what was false. You are making room to live without disguise, without constant comparison, and without the exhausting need to hold everything together. Let go of what demands that you betray your conscience. Let go of the voices that define you only by your past. Let go of the expectation that you must rescue everyone. Let go of the illusion that control can protect you from every pain. Let go of the need to be admired in order to feel secure. You do not have to force the process or make dramatic decisions simply to prove that you are changing. Begin with honesty. Name what is heavy. Notice what repeatedly steals your peace. Seek wisdom before making major choices, then take the next responsible step. I am not asking you to become careless. I am teaching you to become free. What is rooted in truth will not require you to destroy yourself in order to keep it. What is grounded in love will make room for honesty, dignity, and growth. Release what no longer reflects who you are becoming, and do not be afraid of the space that remains. You are not being emptied of meaning. You are being freed from what prevented you from living with a whole and undivided heart. My beloved, I know how difficult it has been to remain faithful through seasons when nothing seemed to change. You prayed, waited, hoped, and searched for some sign that your effort, your tears, and your patience were leading somewhere. At times, it seemed as though everyone else was moving forward while you remained in the same place. You watched doors open for those around you, relationships improve, opportunities arrive, and prayers receive visible answers, while your own life remained unusually quiet. You tried to be grateful for them, yet deep within you carried a question you were sometimes afraid to speak aloud. When will it be my turn? I heard that question. I saw the disappointment you tried to hide beneath your courage. I knew how exhausting it was to keep believing when there was so little outward evidence that anything was happening. Do not be ashamed of that exhaustion. Tiredness is not proof that your faith has failed. It is often the honest response of a heart that has carried uncertainty for a long time. You were not weak because you needed reassurance. You were not ungrateful because waiting hurt. You were human, and I understood the weight of every day that passed without the clarity you desired. There were nights when you could not explain your sadness. There were mornings when you rose and kept going simply because responsibility required it. You smiled so others would not worry. You said you were fine because describing the truth felt too complicated. You carried private disappointments while still offering kindness to people who knew nothing about your struggle. I saw all of it. Nothing about your hidden life was invisible to me. Yet I want you to understand that waiting was not an empty space in your story. Even when you could not see progress around you, important work was taking place within you. You were learning an endurance that could not be developed through convenience. You were discovering the difference between temporary excitement and lasting conviction. You were becoming more discerning about which voices deserved your trust. You were learning not to make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. These lessons did not come easily, and you may not have chosen the circumstances through which you learned them, but they have changed you. The person who entered that season is not the same person listening now. You have gained wisdom that cannot be measured by visible achievement. You have learned how to continue without applause, how to serve without recognition, and how to remain compassionate even when your own heart needed care. You have discovered that faith is not always a powerful feeling. Sometimes faith is the quiet choice to take one more honest step when certainty is unavailable. Sometimes it is choosing to rest instead of pretending to be strong. Sometimes it is admitting that you do not understand and choosing not to abandon what is true. You may have believed that your lack of visible progress meant you were being punished, overlooked, or left behind. But not every delay is rejection, and not every closed door is evidence that you have failed. Some outcomes require more than desire. They require preparation, maturity, timing, and the ability to carry what is being requested. There were things you once wanted that you were not yet ready to handle wisely. There were opportunities that might have fed your insecurity rather than strengthened your purpose. There were relationships you might have entered with unhealed wounds, expecting another person to repair what only truth, time, and honest work could address. There were responsibilities that might have overwhelmed you because you had not yet learned to protect your peace or recognize your limits. Waiting exposed these areas, not to humiliate you, but to help you see them. It revealed where you depended on approval, where fear influenced your decisions, and where you confused urgency with direction. The waiting taught you to pause before reacting. It taught you to listen more carefully. It taught you that not every opportunity is meant to be accepted simply because it arrives. You became more aware of your motives, more respectful of your own boundaries, and more capable of recognizing what aligns with integrity. This growth may not have felt impressive, but it was essential. There are forms of strength that develop only in quiet places. A tree does not deepen its roots where the soil offers no resistance. In the same way, your inner stability was formed through moments that demanded patience, honesty, and perseverance. This does not mean I caused every wound or desired every hardship you endured. Some pain came from the choices of others. Some came from living in a world where people fail, circumstances change, and loss is real. Some came from your own decisions, made with the understanding you had at the time. I do not ask you to call everything good simply because something good may eventually emerge from it. Pain remains pain, betrayal remains betrayal, and loss deserves to be grieved. But what wounded you does not have to possess the final meaning of your life. What was meant to diminish you can become part of the wisdom with which you now protect, guide, and encourage others. What once made you feel powerless can deepen your compassion for people who are still struggling to find their footing. The waiting taught you how to recognize hidden suffering because you became familiar with carrying your own. It softened you in places where bitterness could have taken root. It showed you how deeply a kind word, a patient presence, or a sincere act of support can matter. You now understand that people do not always need quick answers. Sometimes they need someone who will sit beside them without judging the pace of their healing. You can offer that presence because you know what it means to wait without explanation. My child, do not measure the value of those years only by what did not happen. Consider what was formed. You became less willing to chase appearances. You learned that being busy does not always mean being fruitful. You discovered that some relationships survive only when you abandon yourself, and you began to understand that this is not true peace. You learned that your worth cannot depend on constant productivity. You became more honest about your need for rest, support, and grace. These are not small changes. They are the foundation of a steadier life. There were moments when you thought you were merely surviving, but even survival taught you something. It showed you that you could endure more than you imagined, while also teaching you that endurance should never become an excuse to accept every harmful situation. It gave you compassion without requiring you to surrender discernment. It gave you strength without demanding that you become hard. Now you can look back with greater clarity. You may still wish some things had happened differently, and you do not need to deny that regret. But you can also recognize that you are wiser, more grounded, and more aware than you were before. The quiet season was not evidence that your life had stopped. Beneath the surface, your character was being strengthened, your understanding was deepening, and your capacity to carry responsibility was expanding. You were learning how to remain rooted without constant reassurance. You were being prepared to move forward without losing yourself in whatever comes next. Do not despise the person you were during the waiting. Honor the courage it took to continue. Honor the days when your greatest achievement was simply refusing to give up. Honor the moments when you chose kindness while hurting, truth while afraid, and patience while uncertain. Those choices mattered. They shaped you in ways that visible success never could. The waiting was not the whole story, but it was a meaningful part of it. It taught you what cannot be learned in haste. It developed what comfort alone could never produce. And now, before anything around you changes, recognize what has already changed within you. You are no longer waiting with the same heart, the same fears, or the same understanding. You have been strengthened in quiet places, and that strength will remain with you wherever the path leads next. My beloved, restoration does not always begin with a dramatic change in your circumstances. Often, it begins quietly within you, in the places where fear once spoke the loudest, where disappointment settled deeply, and where hope became difficult to hold on to. You may have expected restoration to look like the immediate return of everything you lost, the sudden repair of every relationship, or the rapid removal of every burden. But I want you to understand that true restoration is deeper than receiving back what was taken. It is the renewal of your heart, the healing of your perspective, and the return of peace where anxiety has ruled for far too long. Before your surroundings change, you may begin to notice that you are responding differently. The situation that once controlled your thoughts may no longer hold the same power over you. The memory that once reopened your wound every time it surfaced may begin to lose its sharpness. You may still remember what happened, but you will no longer feel trapped inside it. This is not denial, and it is not forgetting. It is healing. Healing does not erase your story. It changes your relationship with it. What happened to you may remain part of your past, but it does not have to continue defining your present or dictating your future. I am teaching you that peace does not depend on everything becoming perfect. Peace can take root while questions remain unanswered. It can grow while circumstances are still changing. It can remain even when others have not apologized, when a door has not reopened, or when the path ahead is not yet completely clear. The peace I give is not the absence of responsibility or pain. It is the steady assurance that neither pain nor uncertainty has the final authority over your life. You have spent enough time believing that you could rest only after every problem was solved. You delayed your peace because you thought you first had to secure every outcome, repair every misunderstanding, and prepare for every possible disappointment. But peace is not a reward you receive after mastering life. It is a gift you learn to receive while living through it. My child, some relationships may be restored, but restoration does not always mean returning to the way things were. Certain relationships cannot become healthy until truth is acknowledged, trust is rebuilt, and harmful patterns are changed. Reconciliation requires more than longing. It requires honesty, accountability, patience, and a willingness from everyone involved to create something different. You may desire closeness with someone who is not yet prepared to take responsibility. You may hope for an apology that has not come. Do not build your healing entirely on another person's decision. You can become whole even when someone refuses to understand the harm they caused. You can forgive without denying the truth. You can release bitterness without restoring access to someone who remains unsafe. Sometimes restoration means a relationship is renewed with stronger boundaries and greater honesty. At other times, restoration means you finally receive the strength to let that relationship go without hatred. Either way, your peace does not need to remain imprisoned by someone else's unwillingness to change. There are also opportunities you believe you lost forever. You may still think about the path you could have taken, the decision you wish you had made, or the chance that seemed to disappear before you were ready. Regret has a way of convincing you that one missed moment destroyed everything that could have been. But your future is not limited to a single opportunity. A closed door may have changed your direction, but it did not remove every possibility from your life. I can bring new relationships, fresh ideas, unexpected conversations, and different forms of opportunity that you could not have recognized before. What comes next may not resemble what you originally imagined, but different does not mean lesser. Sometimes you ask for the past to return because it is the only future you know how to picture. Yet restoration may require you to release that picture and remain open to something healthier, wiser, and more fitting for the person you have become. Financial concerns may also have placed a heavy weight on your mind. I know the fear that can arise when resources are limited, when expenses increase, or when the future feels uncertain. I know how easily financial pressure can disturb your sleep, strain relationships, and make every decision feel urgent. Do not be ashamed of this concern, but do not allow it to convince you that you are without help or options. Provision may come through many ordinary and unexpected channels. Wise planning, disciplined choices, honest work, supportive relationships, new opportunities, generous communities, or the courage to ask for guidance. Faith is not a reason to ignore practical responsibility, and it should never be used by anyone to pressure you into giving money in exchange for a promised blessing. My care cannot be purchased. You do not need to prove your trust by placing yourself or your household in danger. Move with wisdom, seek counsel when needed, face financial realities honestly. Take responsible steps without surrendering to panic. Provision is not always sudden abundance. Sometimes it is enough strength for today, a clear decision, a reduced burden, an unexpected solution, or the discipline to rebuild gradually. Do not despise small beginnings. Stability often returns one careful choice at a time. Restoration is also changing the way you see yourself. For too long, you may have believed that being wounded made you weak, that being tired made you faithless, or that needing help made you a burden. These conclusions grew from pain, not truth. Your wounds are not your identity. Your exhaustion is not your name. Your need for support does not make you less worthy of love. You are allowed to heal at a human pace. You are allowed to receive care instead of always being the one who provides it. You are allowed to experience joy without feeling guilty because someone else is still struggling. Restoration includes learning to live without constantly expecting the next loss. You have spent so long preparing for disappointment that peace may initially feel unfamiliar. When something good happens, you may hesitate to trust it. When a calm season arrives, you may search for signs that it will soon end. Be patient with yourself. A heart that has lived in survival mode does not immediately recognize safety. Let peace become familiar gradually. Let trustworthy people prove their consistency over time. Let joy enter without demanding that it guarantee the future. You do not need to protect yourself from every possible sorrow by refusing to receive today's goodness. My beloved, wholeness is not the restoration of a flawless life. It is the integration of every part of your story into a life no longer governed by shame, resentment, or fear. It is the ability to remember without being destroyed, to hope without forcing outcomes, and to love without abandoning wisdom. Some things will be repaired, some things will be replaced, some things will be released, and some losses will remain part of your story without remaining at the center of it. Do not measure restoration only by what appears outside of you. Notice the calm returning to your thoughts, the courage returning to your decisions, and the tenderness returning to places that once became hard. Notice when you can speak about the past without losing yourself in it. Notice when you begin to believe that your life still holds meaning. These are not small signs. They are evidence that healing is already taking root. What is being restored within you will not merely return you to who you were before the pain. It will help you become more grounded, discerning, compassionate, and free than you have ever been. My beloved, now that you have begun to recognize my presence, understand the changes within you, release what no longer belongs, honor what was formed in the waiting, and receive restoration at a deeper level, it is time to move forward. You do not need to have every answer before taking the next step. You do not need complete certainty, perfect confidence, or a clear view of the entire road ahead. You only need enough trust to respond faithfully to what is in front of you today. The future may still hold questions, but those questions no longer need to control you. You have learned that uncertainty does not mean abandonment, delay does not mean defeat, and peace does not depend on having every circumstance arranged according to your plans. Carry these truths with you as you enter what comes next. Walk slowly enough to remain aware, but do not remain still simply because you are afraid of making a mistake. Fear will often demand guarantees before allowing you to move. Wisdom does not require guarantees. Wisdom observes, prays, seeks counsel, considers the consequences, and then takes the most faithful step available. You may not always feel courageous when you act, but courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that fear will not become your master. There will be moments when the old version of you tries to return. You may feel tempted to overthink every decision, seek everyone's approval, or abandon your peace in order to prove yourself. When that happens, do not condemn yourself. Pause and remember what you have learned. You do not need to rush simply because others are moving quickly. You do not need to explain every choice to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You do not need to accept every invitation, carry every responsibility, or respond to every demand. A life of purpose is not a life without boundaries. It is a life in which your yes is honest, your no is respectful, and your actions are aligned with truth rather than pressure. Let peace become one of the ways you evaluate your direction. This does not mean every right decision will feel easy. Some faithful choices will require sacrifice, uncomfortable conversations, or the courage to disappoint people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. Yet even difficult obedience can carry a steady inner clarity. Panic, pride, resentment, and desperation will try to disguise themselves as urgency. Learn to recognize them. You do not need to make life-changing decisions while your thoughts are overwhelmed. Give yourself space to breathe, reflect, and listen. Seek voices that are wise, honest, and free from manipulation. Do not confuse confidence with refusing advice. Humility is not weakness. It is the willingness to admit what you do not know and receive guidance without surrendering your responsibility to think, pray, and choose. I will not lead you by demanding that you stop using wisdom. I gave you judgment, discernment, community, and the ability to learn for a reason. Use them. Take practical steps toward the life you say you desire. If something needs to be repaired, begin the conversation. If you owe an apology, offer it without excuses. If a goal requires discipline, create a plan and begin with what you can do. If your health needs attention, seek appropriate care. If your finances need order, face the numbers honestly and make responsible choices. If your heart needs rest, stop treating exhaustion as proof of devotion. Faith does not replace action. It gives action direction. Prayer does not excuse avoidance. It prepares you to respond with wisdom. Trust does not mean waiting passively for me to do what I have already placed within your ability to address. Move with me, not ahead of me, and not endlessly behind. There will also be things you cannot fix. Some people will not change. Some questions will remain unanswered. Some doors will stay closed, no matter how sincerely you knock. Do not spend your life trying to force what has clearly reached its end. Acceptance is not the same as approval. You can acknowledge reality without calling it good. You can grieve what did not happen while still choosing to live fully. You can release an outcome without releasing your faith. The path forward may not include everything you once imagined, but it can still hold meaning, joy, service, and love. Do not make an idol of one particular future. Remain open to the ways purpose can take a different form. My child, carry your story with humility. What you have endured does not make you more important than others, but it can make you more compassionate. Use what you have learned to create safety rather than superiority. When someone is confused, listen before speaking. When someone is hurting, do not rush to turn their pain into a lesson. When someone is waiting, do not offer shallow promises simply because silence makes you uncomfortable. Be present, be truthful, be kind. Your influence will be strongest when people encounter in you the same patience, mercy, and steadiness that helped you continue. You do not need to announce that you are called. Let your character reveal it. Let consistency speak where words would be too easy. Let your private choices support your public message. The next chapter of your life should not be built on the need to prove that you survived. It should be built on the wisdom that survival gave you. Walk with greater care. Choose relationships that make room for honesty. Build routines that protect your peace rather than drain it. Make room for prayer that is sincere, not performed. Return to Scripture not merely for quick answers, but to allow your thinking to be shaped by truth. Notice the ordinary gifts around you: a quiet morning, a trusted conversation, work done with integrity, a moment of laughter, or a chance to help someone without needing recognition. A meaningful life is not made only of dramatic breakthroughs. It is formed through repeated acts of faithfulness. Do not overlook today while waiting for something extraordinary. I am present in the ordinary steps that gradually become a transformed life. You may still encounter disappointment. You may still have days when old fears speak loudly. You may still question whether you are moving in the right direction. When those moments come, return to what is steady. You are known. You are not alone. You are allowed to pause without quitting. You are allowed to ask for help without shame. You are allowed to begin again without treating the previous attempt as wasted. Growth is rarely a straight line. A difficult day does not erase your progress. A moment of fear does not cancel your courage. A mistake does not remove you from my care. Learn, make adjustments, and continue. Do not turn every setback into a verdict on your future. My beloved, walk forward with quiet confidence, not the loud confidence that needs everyone to agree, but the steady confidence that comes from knowing where your identity is rooted. You do not have to defend your worth, force recognition, or chase what was not meant for you. Do what is yours to do with integrity and release the rest. Let your decisions be thoughtful, your words measured, your compassion genuine, and your boundaries clear. Let hope remain open-handed rather than desperate. Let faith make you responsible, not reckless. Patient, not passive. Courageous, not controlling. You began this journey wondering whether I had seen you, and whether my voice could reach you through the noise. Now you know that I was present before you recognized me, near before you called, and faithful through every chapter. Carry that awareness into the future. You are not being asked to run ahead, prove yourself, or force an outcome. Take the next faithful step. Walk with wisdom. Remain close to me. What I have formed within you will continue to guide you, and whatever lies ahead, you will not meet it as the person you once were.